During the last classes, we were discussing about the operators, the different types of operators, their precedence, their associativity, etc. That is the operators that is available in C programming. That was what we were discussing in the last classes. And towards the end of the last session, we discussed about the typecasting also. That is how a particular calculation or a particular expression can result in a data that is of the given type, that is the desired type. That is also the typecasting, the two different types of typecasting that also we have seen. Now, from today's session onwards, what we will be discussing is about the control flow statements. The control flow statements in the sense that how the control of from one place to other place and how it can be controlled, the flow of the flow of the program, how it can be controlled. That is what we program begins execution at the main function. That is always in any C programming. What happens is the program execution starts at the main function. As we said earlier that in all the C programs, a main function is a necessary. So in all the programs, this program execution starts at the main function itself. So then the statements within the main function are then executed from top-down style, line by line. That is the topmost line that is within the main function is executed first, then the next line, then the next line. That is the top-down style. That is from the topmost point or the topmost line to the bottommost line. It is line by line it is being executed. But in a real C program, what happens is this order is not always advisable, and we may not be able to follow this particular order in all the C programs. In most of the C programs, we have to follow some other procedures also. That is, the sequential execution may not be possible in all cases. And while studying about the flowchart, we have seen the different types of programming structures. That 3 different type of programming structures also we have seen. So that is a sequence, then a control, as well as a looping structure that we have seen. Then the order of the execution within the main body may be branched. That is after a single statement, there may be 2 different possibilities, 2 or multiple different possibilities. In some cases, it may not be only a single 2 different possibilities. There may be a multiple different possibilities of execution, depending on the value of a particular expression, a value of a particular variable in a particular line. In a particular line, if the value of a variable is something, then it has to act something. Then if it is something else, then it has to act like other thing, etc., etc. So that is also there. So this process of changing the order in which the statements are executed is known as the program control. That is, the program control is actually changing the order in which the statements are executed depending upon the value of a specific variable, or depending on some specific conditions within the program. Then this particular program control is accomplished by using the program control statements. So there are multiple program control statements depending on the particular situation that is within the program. We have to use a specific program control statements. So actually, what the program flow is controlling is the program control statements. That is, the program control statements controls the program flow. That is how the program is to execute it, whether this particular line is executed next or any other line of code is to be executed next. So that is the program control statements does. So let's see the different types of program control statements. So we have seen the different program control statements as the sequence, the selection, as well as repetition. The sequence is the top-down style. That is, one line of code is executed at the topmost line. The topmost line of code is executed first, then the next top line is executed, then the next top line is executed. Likewise, that is in a sequential way. That is in this directly. It is say here is a line of code. This is a line of code. This is a line of code. Then it is acting in a sequence. There won't be any breakage happening. That is the sequence control structure. So that is we have nothing to do in that case. You have to only enter the different lines of code that is to be executed line by line. Then the next two types, that is the selection as well as repetition. These are the program control structures actually. So in the selection structure, there can be an if structure. That is, if a particular condition is satisfied, then a set of statements are to be executed. If that particular execution statement is not, or that particular condition is not satisfied, in that case, that those set of codes are, those set of statements are not executed. That is the condition of if. We will be seeing it one by one in detail. Then there is if else is there. There is nested if. Nested if, there are two different types of nested if, like if else, or if else if. And then the last type of selection structure is the switch case break structure. Then finally, the repetition structure or the loop structure is also there. There are different types of loop structure. One is the for loop, then there is a while loop and a do while loop. So we will study them one by one. Then some certain C functions and keywords also can be used to control the C program flows. And we are not focusing on this type of C functions as well as keywords in this particular module. So what we are focusing on this module is about the selection as well as repetition structures. So now we will discuss the selection structures one by one. The first selection structure, the single most selection structure is if. If is the single most selection structure. So the condition, the structure of an if will be something like this. If the inside the C programming code, we will be writing an if. Then there is a possible condition, and the condition should be given in parentheses, that is within brackets. Then if this particular condition is true, if this particular condition becomes true, what is to be executed? So that is the statement that is to be executed if this particular condition becomes true. And then the next statement, even if this particular condition is false, this next statement will be executed. And if this condition is true, in that case, this statement will be executed, and after executing this statement, only the next statement will be executed. So there is an alternative way of doing this thing, this this if condition. So here the only thing is there are multiple statements. The multiple statements, if the condition is true, if the condition becomes true, in that case there are multiple statements that is happening. Here only one condition will be happening. Here there will be only one, only one statement will be there. If there is only a single statement, then you have to put that statement directly. But in the case there are multiple statements, say there are more than one line of statements. So in that case, what you have to do is you have to put those lines of statements inside a curly braces. Even if we haven't put the lines of codes inside the curly braces, what will happen is only the first line of code will be executed if that particular condition is true. And in all the cases, all other statements will be executed. So that is the condition. So the explanation goes like this. The condition is evaluated. The condition should be placed inside a bracket. This can be something like this: A is greater than B, or A is greater than 10, or some expression is less than, say, 100. So something like this. Any sort of this type of condition is possible. So that condition, or some value C is equal to 10. If C is equal to 10, then in that case this is to be this particular statement is to be happen. So that is the condition. So any condition can be possible, any type of condition which gives a, which will be evaluated to a Boolean value, that is a true or false value. And if it is true, a true means it is a non-zero. If the value is a non, then say if A is greater than B, so this can be either true or false. True means this is greater than zero. So that is a non-zero value, not greater than zero. It is a non-zero value. Even -1 is also treated as true. The negative values are also treated as true. Only zero value is treated as false. So if it is evaluated to be true, then the statement is executed. If it is evaluated to be false, that is the zero, the next statement following the if statement block is executed. So that is, this particular block is not executed in that case. If the statement, if this condition is found to be or evaluated to be false. So depending on the conditions, depending on some specific conditions, some codes may be skipped. That is, if the statement, if this particular condition becomes false, in that case, these statements will be skipped. That won't be executed. So the if structure is commonly represented like this. Here is the condition. Here is a condition that is grade. Grade is the variable that we are comparing. And if grade is greater than or equal to 60, if grade is greater than or equal to 60, if it is true, we have to print passed. If it is true, it is being printed as passed. If it is false, something else is to be done. We don't know what is to be done because it doesn't have an else statement, but instead it is evaluated to the next line of code. So this line of code, this line of evaluated after printing this part passed. If this grade is greater than or equal to 60, then passed is printed. If it is less than 60, in that case nothing is printed. Instead it goes to the next line of execution. So some examples: if hours is greater than 70, that is, if a variable hours is greater than 70, then hours equal to hours plus 100. Print less hours, no bonus. So that is, so in both the cases, even if the hours is greater than or greater than 70, or even if it is less than 70 or less than or equal to 70, this will be printed. That is, less hours, no bonus. That particular line will be printed. If this exceeds, if hours exceeds 70, then obviously 100 will be added to the hours. So it becomes 100 plus whatever be the value of hours. So that is one case. So this is a single line of code execution. Here only a single line of code is given. So there is no curly braces given. But if job code equal to 1, job code equal to, this single quotes represents that this is a character evaluation, that is character matching, not a value matching. Value 1 is not given. Job code is not equal to 1. We are checking whether job code is equal to the character 1, not the value 1. So if this is true, then a car allowance of 100, housing allowance is given a value 500, and the entertainment allowance will be given as 300. So if this is true, these values will be assigned, and in both the cases, this will be printed. That is, printf not qualified for car, housing, and entertainment allowances. This will be printed in both the cases, even if the job code is 1 or not. If job code is character 1 or not, whatever be the condition, this will be printed. So that is the condition with the if. If a particular condition satisfies, a set of codes will be executed. Otherwise, it goes to the next line of code. So that is about if. Let us see a program based on if statement. So here is a program which explains the working of if. So int a is defined as 10. And if a is less than 10, if a is less than 10, less than 20, if a is less than 20, in that case, A is less than 20 will be printed. Since in this condition, A is less than 20, so A is less than 20, this particular line will be displayed. And whatever be the case, this line will be printed. The value of A is. So let us run it. See, A is less than 20. So that particular line of code is printed. This is because A is less than 20. A is 10 and it is the 10 is less than 20. That is why this particular line of code is executed. Then the next value of A is 10. So that is also printed. So instead of putting this A as 10, let us put it as 30. That is a value that is greater than 20. In that case, what will happen? Let's see. So in this case, value of A is 30. Only this particular line is printed or displayed. Value of A is 30. So since A is not less than 20, so what happened is this particular line of code, this printf A is less than 20, that particular line of code is skipped. So that is why this value of A is 30. That particular answer came up. So that's about the if. The next is if else condition. So if in the case of if, we have only a specific set of statements. If the condition is true, if the given condition is true, in that case those statements will be executed. If that particular statement is false, those conditions will not be executed. That was the condition. But in the case of if else statements, what is, if the condition is true, this statement will be executed. And if it is false, that is else. If this condition is false, that is else this particular statement will be executed. So this can be applied to block of statements also, that is a number of statements. So here, if this condition is true, this set of statements can be executed, this block of statements. That is why we put this curly braces on both sides. So whatever is within this curly braces will be executed if this condition is true. And if that particular condition is false, this block of code will be executed. That is, whatever is within this particular block of statements will be executed. Then the next statement. After this, the execution of this one, depending on the conditions, either this will be executed or this will be executed. So that is, these are mutually exclusive statements. Only one set of statements will be executed, and in all the conditions, at least one set of statements will be executed. So the explanation for this particular structure, the condition is first evaluated. If it evaluates to non-zero, that is a true, then statement 1 is executed. Otherwise, if it evaluates to false, then statement 2 is executed. They are mutually exclusive, meaning either statement 1 is executed or statement 2 is executed, but not both. Either one of them, statement 1 or statement 2 is executed, but they won't be executed together. That is, both of them will not be executed together, and at least one of them will be executed. So the statements 1 and statements 2 can be block of codes and must be put in curly braces. If it is a block of codes, then you have to put it in curly braces. And an example of this if else statement: if my code is equal to 1, then in that case rate is 7.20, else rate is 12.50. So that is, if my code is this character 1, this is character 1, not the value 1. If my code is equal to character 1, then the rate is taken as 7.20. If that my code is not equal to 1, that is, if not equal to character 1, in that case the rate is taken as 12.50. So that is the meaning. So in the previous case, we doesn't have this else statement. So if my code is true, then rate is 7.20. Otherwise, we doesn't know what is the value. But in this case, the rate is 12.50 if the my code is not equal to 1. So this is the condition, the flow diagram for a flow diagram structure for a selection procedure, selection structure if else. So if this particular condition is true, if this condition is true, then we have to print passed. That is, if grade is greater than or equal to 60, in that case we have to print passed. If this value is, if the grade is not greater than or equal to 60, that is, if grade is less than 60, if grade is less than 60, we have to print it failed. We have to display failed. So that is the condition. We are checking the condition, that is grade is greater than or equal to 60. If it is true, then print the passed is printed, and if it is false, failed is printed. So let us see an if else statement in program. So here an integer is defined as 100. Integer a is defined as 100 or initialized as 100. And if a is less than 20, if a is less than 20, then we have to print a is less than 20. Else, if a is not less than 20, in that case we have to print a is not less than 20. In both the cases, since this the execution ends here, execution is terminated here, execution of if is terminated here, then we have to print value of a is whatever be the value of a. So that is what this particular program does. If a is less than 20, then in that case the value of a is less than 20, that is to be printed. So let us see how this is being executed. So since a is given as a value of 100, the value that is the statement that is executing is a is not less than 20, that is being executed. Then finally this one is also executed, that is the value of a is 100, that is also being executed. Now if we put the value of say a equal to 10 instead of 100, if we put the value of a to be 10, then what will happen? We are executing it. So see, a is less than 20. So if a is less than 20, this particular line of code, that is if a is less than 20, this condition evaluated to be true, a is less than 20, that is evaluated to be true. So whatever is inside the block, inside the true block, that is to be executed, that is less than printed here. Then finally this statement, that is printf value of a is. So it is initialized as 10. So the value of a is 10. So that is also printed here. So this is how the if else is being done. If is done in order to make a specific lines of codes, a specific number of lines of codes or a single line of code to either execute or not to execute. If else creates two mutually exclusive set of lines of codes, so that one set of codes will be executed in one condition, and in all other conditions the other set of lines of codes will be executed. So that is if else. Now the if else constructs can be nested, that is placed one within the another, that is one if else. Suppose we have an if else statement is here, so we can put another if else inside this one, if else. So this once this if has become true, then this goes to this if, and if it is true, then this the lines of codes that is here will be executed. And if this particular condition, the condition within this bracket here, is false, then the lines of codes here will be executed. So the two general forms of program, if else statement or nested if else is if else and if else if. These are the two different program structures or nested program structures. The if else constructs has the following form, that is 3 level of depth. The example is shown, that is if else. If it is an if else construct, then it has a, I'm showing an example with the 3 level of depth. See, here is an if a condition 1, a condition is given, and then If this particular condition is true, then another condition. If condition 2 is checked, if this particular condition is again true, here is it goes. That is if condition 3. And if all these conditions are true, then only this condition 4 will be executed. If any of these conditions becomes false, then it, depending on which condition is false, it goes to the corresponding else. If this condition, if condition 3 is false, then this goes to this else. That is, it goes to the statement 3. And if this condition is false, if condition 2 is false, then it goes to this else. That is, in that case, the statement 2 is executed. If condition 1 is false, then it goes to this else, and the statement 1 is executed. So this is how the nested loop works. That is, there is an if, then another if, then a third if. These are all if continuous. Then if all these three conditions are true, all these conditions are true, then this statement will be executed. This statement will be executed. So in order to execute this statement for all three true, and this will be executed if first two are true and the third is false. First two are true and the third is false. So in that case, this will be executed. This statement 2, this will be executed in the case first is false. I mean, first is true and the second is false. So this doesn't consider this particular condition. The third condition is not evaluated if the second condition is false. If the second condition becomes false, the third condition will not be evaluated in this case. And this will be, this statement 1 will be executed if the first condition becomes false. So if the first condition is false, then the statement 1 will be executed. Then these two conditions, the condition 2 as well as condition 3, will not be will not be checked in that case. That is, if the condition 1 is false. So this is an if else statement, and the same explanation is given here. In this nested form, condition 1 is evaluated. If it is 0, that is, if it is false, statement 1 is executed, and the entire nested if statement is terminated. So after executing this statement 1, this entire statement is executed, if statement is executed. And if it is non-zero, that is, if it is 0, I mean true, that is, if condition 1 is true, then control goes to the second if, this if, control goes to this if, and the condition 2 is evaluated. If this condition is false, the statement 2 is executed, and once this 2 is executed, then the control goes to the next statement. And if this condition is evaluated to be true, then condition 3 is evaluated. If this is true, then condition 3 is evaluated. This condition is evaluated. Then if it is false, then statement 3 is executed, and once this particular statement is executed, the condition goes to the control goes to the next statement. Else, if this condition is true, in that case, the statement 4 is executed. That is, the statement 4 will be executed only if all the statements are true. So in all these cases, only one statement is executed. It is either statement 4 is executed, or statement 3 is executed, or statement 2 is executed, or statement 1 is executed, and all other statements are skipped. So if the if and if else is used together with if, always match an else with the nearest if before the else. That is, if and else, that should be matched together. This is if, here is an if, and this is an else. So these two else, if and else, will be combined together. The if will be combined with the nearest else if no other if is available within that if. So that is this one. So this if is mapped with this if else, and this if is mapped with this else. This if won't be mapped with this else, because this else has already an if here. Here is an if. So this else won't be mapped with this if. This if will be mapped with this else. And this if, the outermost if, will be mapped with the outermost else. So that is the condition. So in these cases, the statements can be the block of codes also. That is the statement 1, statement 2, and statement 3. These can be a block of codes, not necessarily a single line of code. So let's see an example in which this if, else if statements are being used. So this is an example. Here only 2 levels of ifs are given, not 3 levels of ifs are given in this, are not given in this example program. So we have two values, integer a, which is initialized to be 100, and integer b, which is also initialized to be 200, not 100. It is initialized to be 200. Then we check whether a is equal to 100. If a equal to 100, then it has to do something. The else is not given here. So if b equal to 100, then something else is to be given. So if both are true, then in that case, printf value of a is 100 and b is 200. So that is the condition. And after the execution of all these things, we are printing, we are displaying the exact value of a is something and the exact value of b is something. So that values will be here. So let us execute it. So see, since these two conditions are evaluated to be true, a is 100, so a is equal to 100. This condition is evaluated to be true, and b equal to 200, that is also evaluated to be true. So this particular statement is executed. That is, value of a is 100 and b is 200. That is executed. Then finally, the exact value of a is 100. That is printed, and the exact value of b is 200. That is also printed. Suppose if we change the values of one of these one, say b is changed to say 150 or 100 itself. We change the value of b to be 100. So in that case, if we execute it, see, this particular line of code is not executed in that case, just because this condition, this b equal to 200 condition, that condition became false. So that didn't execute. So that is how the if else statements are working, or the nested loop is working. Now the next type of nested if statements, that is if else if statements. It is having something like this. If a condition 1 is checked, then the statement 1 is executed. If this condition is true, this statement is executed. And then if this condition is false, else, that is, if this condition is false, then we are again checking another condition. If that particular condition is false, we are again checking if condition 2 is true. If condition 2 is true, this condition is executed. Then again, if that one is also false, then else. If condition 3 is false, 3 is true. If condition 3 is true, then statement 3 is executed. If this condition is also false, then we go to the else condition, that is statement 4. So that is, if this condition is, in order to execute this particular condition, only condition 1 needs to be true. Condition 1 needs to be true. If condition 1 is true, this is executed. This will be executed if condition 1 is false and condition 2 is true. This statement 2 will be executed if condition 1 is false and condition 2 is true. And this condition, this statement 3 will be executed if condition 1 and 2 are false and 3 is true. In this case, this particular condition is executed. This statement 3 is executed. Else, if the statement 4 will be executed if 1, 2, and 3. All these three conditions are false. If all these three conditions are false, in that case, this particular statement will be executed. And after this, if terminates right here, the if statement terminates right here, and in all the cases, the next statement will be executed. And in this case also, only one statement will be executed in a case, that is either statement 1 will be executed, or statement 2 will be executed, or statement 3 will be executed. Once a statement 4 will be executed. Once a statement is executed, the further conditions won't be checked, won't be taken care of, or won't be considered. So the explanation as we discussed is given here. I am not explaining it again. So let us see an example in this case. An if-else-if statement. C. Int A is taken as 100. A is given a value of 100. And if A equal to 10, if A is equal to 10, then we have to print the value of A is 10. Else, if the value of A is 20, if the value of A is 20, then the value, it will be printed as value of A is 20. And if A equal to 30, in that case, the value of A is 30. That value, that will be printed. And else, that is if none of them is correct, then else print none of the values is matching, no values is matching. So then finally we have to print the exact value of A is 100, that is to be printed. So let us run it. So the thing that happened is none of the values is matching. So since the value of A is 100, A is not equal to 10, so this is becoming false, and else if this is becoming false, and else if A equal to 30, that is also becoming false. So all the three are false, so that is why this particular statement executed. So if I change the value of say A to 10, if let us change the value of A to 10 and then recompile it and rerun the program. So in that case, the value of A is 10, that is printed. So that is if A equal to 10, so that is this particular value became 10, A is equal to 10. So this particular condition became true, and so that value is I mean that value, the statement inside that particular condition is displayed. So value of A is 10. If we change the value to 20, if I change the, see what is happening, recompile it and rerun it. So the value of A is 20, that is printed. So the exact value of A is 20. So if I change the value of 20 to 30, again, recompiling, the value of A is 30, that is executed. So that is how the if-else-if statement works. That is, if a condition is true, then a particular set of statement is executed, and if it is false, then checks for some other condition. Then if that condition is true, a set of statements is executed, and again that condition, the second condition is also false, then a third condition is checked. And likewise, you can go to any number of nested if statements, that is inside this if statements. You can have any number of statements. See the way in which this is working. If has an else if here, and here is another else if here, and finally an else is here. So this is how this if else statements are to be written. And that's about if else if statements. So this is the flowchart illustrating a nested if statement. This is only for the if condition. Then if that particular condition is false, another if condition, and if this if expression is true, this can be moved to here, and if it is false, another if condition. So if it is true also, here is another if condition. So that is that is the way this this is being represented. That is, this is something like this: if condition 1, expression 1. If this is true, in that case, statement 1. So that is how this is being expressed. And if this is false, then only this expression 2 will be expressed. So that is the way this particular flowchart is designed. And with that one, we end today's class. Any doubts?